Nice. So, what the fuck is TDD? Yeah, so this is a story about a man and his tests. And I even wrote a test for this talk just to kind of get it kicking. So we're now at the beginning of the first case, so expect people's state to be slightly drunk. So please make sure that passes. But real quick about the things I'm going to go through. So I'm going to talk about a bit what TDD actually means. I'm going to go into white box and black box testing. I'm going to do some live coding, I hope. It's been a while, but I'll do some live coding using TDD, and then we'll get into a bit of a conclusion to my thoughts. Now, this talk is partially backed by evidence, partially my own opinions. I won't tell you which is which. I'll leave that up to you. But yeah, let's get into it. So a bit about me. Hi, my name is Dusan Turajlic. I've been in the software game for like almost 10 years. Been doing various things like smart TV development, event platform development, or a platform for events, or for creating events development. I worked at Solita before. But I currently work for Cambly. Cambly is a company that builds a platform for making product concept testing easier. So we build a tool that makes testing like new product ideas or like new ideas in general a lot easier. We allow for testing in many different languages, and we use artificial intelligence to kind of summarize things a lot faster for you. For context, if you have a survey in one language that has like 10 questions, or if you have a survey in two languages that has like 10 questions, analyzing one question takes a human being like 8 hours, because you have to read through all the texts and categorize them, all that, and we can do it in like an hour or less, depending on the size of the survey. So it actually is saving people's time, and the goal, the company's mission is to reduce waste in this world, because an alarming number of products actually fail that are launched every year, and we're trying to make that less. But yeah, so I spend a lot of my free time coding, and I do various different projects and test out new languages and frameworks and play around with things. I enjoy exercising, mostly because if I only sit behind a desk and don't do anything, I'll go insane. I have way too much energy. And yeah, that's my dog in the picture. I like to include him in all my talks because he's great. And this is live footage of me doing doggo debugging. It's kind of like rubber ducky debugging, but with your dog. But yeah, into the actual talk. So what does TDD mean? So it means test-driven development. Now, I probably a lot of you know what that means and have heard that before, and probably have seen the red, green, blue circle. I on purpose didn't include it here because I trust everyone has seen it. I want to talk more about like what it technically means, because every time when somebody talks about TDD, they just say, "Oh yeah, tests come first." That's about it. And then for people like me, who when I started testing and somebody told me tests come first, I was in the extreme of like testing. I would write the whole feature, then write the whole test, and then I would be like, how can one even write the test beforehand? So when I started doing TDD, I kind of realized that, oh no, it's not like this. It's actually a lot better. But we'll get into that. I'll show you that when we go into it. But what is the goals of TDD? So the idea is basically an iterative process. So the concept of failing fast. So you write something, it fails, you make it work, you keep on changing the test, and then it fails again. It's just continuous iteration. It's really like good and nice, and really like quick feedback loop for yourself. Then promotes continuous change. This is kind of nice, like kind of the promotes continuous change and design is divided into phases. They're kind of tied together because while you're making something, you leave seams for yourself without even knowing it, just because it's easier to test it that way. And it's a good thing because that produces more modular code. So you don't have to think about, oh, how could this be used somewhere else when it's already being used somewhere else. Then there's well, this one I actually kind of don't fully agree with, even though I took this list from the internet. So I the clear documentation of code. So yes, sure, your tests do help the documentation of the code, but I wouldn't rely only on those just because they don't always tell the full story of why this was done. They tell how it works and kind of like it works in this direction. But there are sometimes some really like complicated business logic things that need to have more description. So your tests shouldn't be your only source of documentation. Then, of course, better code maintenance. That one's obvious because, I mean, anything that has tests is more maintainable than anything that doesn't. Even if it's bad tests, it's still more maintainable than no tests. Then you refactor constantly. So that's a good thing because it keeps your software soft. Like Martin Fowler has said that a software needs to be soft. And when you refactor it constantly, you keep it soft because it's easy to make changes. And then faster development. Now, people might argue against this, that it's faster to develop with TDD, but it is, because you have to look at it from a different angle always, because if you want to write a test, it will be faster with TDD to write the whole thing as if you want to have tests. If you don't want to have tests, then of course it's not faster. But it is faster in the longer run because if you don't have a test for it, it's suddenly going to fail for no reason, and then you're kind of back to square one, and you're spending that time that you would have spent on the test figuring out how the heck this actually works. So it is faster in the general sense. Then a bit about white box and black box testing. So this is a common topic that I've heard discussed, and I've myself been wrong about this before. But basically, so the definitions of the two is a white box test is a method of software testing that tests internal structures of working of an application as opposite to its functionality. And black box is, of course, the opposite, where you test the functionality, not so much the internal logic. Now, I prefer to test things through a black box manner. But when reading the textbook definition of a white box test, things I've considered black box tests have been white box tests. Like something as trivial as you have a test that updates an item using a REST controller. In the test, you go ahead and inject an item into the database beforehand so you can update it and then validate that it's correct. That is technically white box because you're dealing with internal logic of the application. So it is technically a white box test. It's not a bad thing. It's not necessarily a bad thing that you're doing it that way. It's just, it's more maintainable to do it that way. So if you would have asked me a few years ago, should you do white box or black box testing, I would have always said black box, white box is shit, don't touch that, that's stupid, why would you ever do that? That was the young, naive me. I don't agree with that fully. It's my answer has become to everything, it depends, as all developers usually say. But then about different testing variations. So there's of course the classic unit integration end-to-end testing, and I noticed recently, I've had discussions with other developers, and I've noticed myself that people don't know what the unit test is, and they don't know where the line goes between a unit test and an integration test. But it's essentially if you tell someone it's not a unit test, they see that as a bad thing and then try to argue against you why it is a unit test, even though it isn't. So a unit test is literally just the smallest piece of code that can be logically isolated. That's it. If you're not calling a database, you're not pulling in other dependencies or anything. You can dependency inject things there, so you can have mocks and things like that. That's still considered a unit test. But it needs to be isolated. And I will always prefer to go the unit test route, but sometimes it just doesn't make sense. Let's say you're writing a test for a REST controller. What are you going to unit test there? You're sending data, and that's writing into a database. It's what are you going to do there? Mock the entire thing? It adds no value to do that. Or I guess it adds some value, but it's minuscule. So for that case, use an integration test. And end-to-end test, I've heard people argue that you can just do end-to-end tests. You don't need the other stuff. You can just do end-to-end tests. While that is partially correct, developing with that is not nice at all. If you have only end-to-end tests and you get the same kind of errors you do as when a user reports an error. Hey, there came an error in this place. Great. Where? So you go through the same logic of code as you would do if a user reported the error. So that's why like you can use those sparingly. But of course, some things just can only be tested as an end-to-end test. The idea is to basically be mimicking a user. So some things can only be tested that way. So those are my 2 cents on these things before we get started. So let's do some live coding. So I realized that actually all the tests I will be doing are integration tests because I used React for this, which was a mistake, but I used React for this, and it essentially every test in React is an integration test, even though you might think it's not, it still is. But yeah, let's get into it. So I'm now actually in the wrong file. Oh yeah, actually maybe I should show what the heck we're going to be doing. So there's this little tiny application I made that is just like a product site. I always go with the product site because there's enough complexity to be able to demonstrate things on it, but it's not so complex that you have to explain internal domain logic. Everyone knows how to buy something and how to shop. It's a general thing. So right now, as you can see, we have a bunch of products. But clicking on this product leads us to a white page, which is obviously not what we want. We want to have a display of the details. So that's what we'll be doing. We're going to display the details, and then we're going to create a controller for making an order. And then we're going to basically add some buttons for adding to cart and buying it. So we're not adding payments here, but just adding the buttons. But yeah. If we start from the front end part, I did this in a mono repo, so this is going to be nice and concise here. That we have this preview where there's the stub element I created. So here we have the initial part of the test, which is just like should render the product. Now I've seen a lot of people do snapshots here. Don't. Snapshots are the bane of my existence, and please don't use those. But anyway. When you want to like render a product, you want to check things that are important to you. So for me, for instance, I'm gonna check here now that let's say I want to know when the like name of the product is there. So I've created a fake product, and then I can do the right. I need to import screen. Sorry. So here I'm gonna do the screen dot get by role. And Copilot is already telling me what to do. Great. There we go. Use Copilot also. It helps. But yeah, now we're going to do the get by role. And this one will actually already validate that this item exists. Otherwise, it'll throw an error. So we can actually run this test, and it should fail. So now the test has failed. Great. Now we got the first test step of the red, green, blue. We're in the red, of course. And now we're going to jump into the actual code. So the idea is to create the smallest possible, like the smallest passable case here when you're doing this first test. So
can you go back a little bit to a higher level? Which one is kind of is everything in the production code, or is the test code? What's the separation here? What's the separation with the files here?
Oh, sorry. Yeah. So I only have the view here. So there's the view, and I'm testing everything like from the view level for this situation, since it's going to be a whole integration test. I tried different ways of doing it, and it took way too long to do it in any other way. So,
so you're not running the testing in a separate software?
No, the testing is running plain here. So when I press play here, it just runs because in the front end I mocked the APIs. So, or actually we're not making any requests yet. So it's just running here. So now if we go back to here, nope, wrong file. If we go back to here, we want to create the like minimum passing of this. And now I actually do this quite often to get this sort of passing, just to see if my thing works. So I wanted an H1, and I know that it's called a product. And now if I run the test, it's obviously going to pass because now it has a headline there for that. So now I have the headline there. Now I can start actually refactoring my code. So obviously I want to actually make a request here. So now I can start with creating a little component here. So I'm going to keep everything in this one file, and then we'll move it out when we need to. But here I'm going to create a product info, which is going to be like this. So like the test part that I've written is just checking that the name of the product is there. Oh Lord, this already came here. Let's not use this yet. So let's just return a h1. Oh, sorry, h1, and of course, because it's React, I have to use suspense, otherwise things don't work. So I have to create a little interface here real quick. Interface, product info props, great, thank you, Copilot. No, not that actually. I want to create a resource. No, sorry, it's actually going to be a suspense resource, and here it's going to be a product. Now I obviously created these types in advance because there's no point in watching me create the types here. And here we get the resource. And then here we do just const product read, and then here we of course do the product.name. So now that we have that generally there, I have to wrap this in a, actually no, I did this the wrong way now. Sorry. So I'm going to go back to the test, pretend I didn't write anything. Yeah, anyway, so I need to obviously create a mock for, because I'm now going to be making an API request. So I need to do this like, what did I name it? It was something like single product endpoint. Mock single product endpoint. There we go. And product. There we go. So now the mock is created for getting a single product. I had to create these helpers because otherwise this takes too long to demonstrate. So now we're making that. If we go one step back, it's still going to pass because I'm still just putting the name of it there in the actual test. So now we're going to wrap this with a suspense. Suspense. We're going to have a fallback of just. No, actually, no. Sorry, no fallbacks. No fallbacks. Sorry, not yet. This happens to me a lot. I'm just dumb. I'm supposed to know this as well, that you're not supposed to write any more complex logic than you absolutely need. Yet I still end up going a bit ahead of myself. This isn't actually it. It's get single product. Copilot doesn't know my naming convention. But yeah, this is basically that. Now we're going to go back into the test. Now we're actually going to be making an API request, but it's obviously going to be broken now because there's no headline named product. So this means we're going to go back in here, even though it should be one, but it's because, well, we don't have any loading or anything because suspense wants a fallback. So here we're going to do an await. Need to make, no, it's already async. Wait for element to be removed. Screen.get by text, and just, oh, Copilot was there for me. Oh, nice. I'm going to need to copy that icon. Then we're going to go into this thing, and then we're going to obviously make a fallback here, and it's going to be the, do I need to have a div here? I guess I'll just put a div here. There we go. And now if we go back to here, and why is this erroring? Oh, there's no semicolon at the end. Makes sense. Also no closing parentheses. This is a problem with Copilot. It doesn't know how to close parentheses. But yeah, now it should pass, because now we're actually getting data from endpoint somewhere. And yeah, then of course, what's the next step that we want to test? So we probably want to get the product, what's it called? The price of the product and the description of the product. So basically, just do the same thing that get by text. Oh, already there. And get by text description. So we do that, and of course it's going to fail because we don't have that. So then we're going back into here, and then we do the, well, now we have to add a fragment, of course. like so, and like this. Paste, no, damn you, like so, and then here we're going to add the, yeah, that, and why did it do that? That's not what I wanted it to do. Why would it use dangerously add HTML? That feels a little bit excessive. But yeah, then that, of course, and then now I can run the test, and it works, yay. But this probably doesn't actually look that nice. It looks okay. I've seen worse. Then, of course, the next step would be to get images. I mean, we need images. It's a product. How else are you going to sell it? So now we want to screen debug. OK. So now we're going to need to get, so in a details page, you usually have many images. So that means we need to get, yes. Or no, not totally. I'm not going to be using any alt tags here. Get all by role, const images equals, and then we're going to do a quick expectation here that expect images dot length. Oh wait, is there a to have length? Dot to have, there is. Nice. How many images should I have? I have 2 images there. But yeah. All right, let's start with 2 images. So we need 2 images. Then, of course, we want to have the images here above. I should run the test first. It fails because there are no images present here. So I want to have the test, like, obviously I want to have the images above because it looks better that way. And then I probably want to have a, we'll just start with this. So want to have product.images. That's not how you do that. You have to wrap it with the curly braces. Product.images.map. No, don't worry about it. I trust that it's there. Don't worry, in this situation it is. But yeah, why would you do that? Why would you add the specific one? Well, maybe Copilot isn't as smart as I thought it was. Yes, it can be a URL. But yeah. And then having the same alt tag for everything isn't really useful, so I'm just going to remove the alt tag completely. Yes, accessibility people, I'm sorry. But it's fine. It's a demo. We're not going to be publishing this to production. Oh, yeah, of course, a key. We need a key. I didn't have actually any IDs here. We're going to put the URL as the key. I mean, there might be duplicates, but probably not, actually. in this case either, probably won't be. But yeah, now we have that. So now the test is passing. Now if we take a look at what this looks like, it looks a lot better. Full-sized images everywhere. But we're not looking at the styles here. That will be done later. So yeah, then so now we have the images here. So we probably also want to have one specific image that's the preview, which would be the first image. So then we probably want to have more images. So we probably want to have, could do it with a test ID, but no, we'll just keep it like this, and then we'll expect that there are 3, because there should be 3 now, but there aren't. There's just 2. So we're gonna go back into our code, and this is really wide. Then we're gonna do a little quick product.image. And then we're going to go image. This will all make sense once this looks nicer. But yeah, then we're just going to add that in there. Just trust me. Jeez. I wrote the types for this. I could have just written it to not be optional, but apparently I didn't. So you get to watch me type exclamation points. Because it shouldn't be optional, actually, in this exact application. Usually it probably should be. But yeah, then now the test is passing because we have 3. Great. But then I think this is like pretty much it, right? but I'll go ahead and take from some of my bit of a scrappy ones here that actually I can take from this one because this one's a bit better. So this is different HTML that uses Tailwind to make things all pretty and stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and place that in. I'm just going to place it in here. And then I just need to make one import. And that should be it. Now if we refresh here, look at how much nicer this is. Like a lot nicer. I did the Tailwind thing in advance just because this would have taken way longer to do it like this. I'm not very good at styling. But yeah, now actually I don't even need this anymore because the library handles it for me. But now if we run the test, it actually passes because I tested it like on a high level to just make sure that the elements are there, because the UI is irrelevant to my test. I just want to see that the elements are there. That is my test, that I want to see they're there. So changing the UI didn't actually break the test because no functionality has changed. It's still the same. So now that we have that, we have a nice looking test here, or a nice looking component here. This is something you could put on Dribble, but probably shouldn't. No, but let's move forward to the actual API tests, because they can also be done using TDD. So I created a start for this, which is basically just get the first out of all products, which this one is a service that does an under the hood SQL query to get all the products from the database, and then just gives me the one product because I unwrap it out of there. I could do a separate one with a limit of 1, but it's fine. This is fine for this case. And then I have the orders file, which is empty, of course, because we're going to write tests for it first. So yeah, this is going to be like a very simple CRUD endpoint. So we just send it in data, and then we want to check that it exists in the database. So then we just do like expect status to be, why does it do that? HTTP status dot created. It's a lot nicer to read those when they're enums. Then we want to expect, obviously, that, right, maybe we should actually get something from the database. So let's just use the connection, go to orders, dot where, and I think this was the syntax for it. Copilot, why aren't you helping me now when I need you? Product ID, colon, product. All right. Is there an error somewhere here that I'm not aware of? Oh yeah, actually, now it tells. Why does it want to delete it immediately? No, don't do that. Jeez, chill. Yeah, so now if we run this, it will obviously fail because there is no order linked to that product right now. So it gives me a 404 because I haven't created anything. Also, I'm not awaiting anything here. Order, there we go. Then if we make a run for it, it's still going to give me a 404 because I didn't actually create the endpoint. But yeah, then we're going to go ahead here and not that actually, close. Dot post, then, oh yeah, pretty much this. Except for, so I used Koa for the first time for this. Works a bit differently than I expected, but it's fine. You have to add this thing called like a Koa body parser here so that it can actually parse something. But yeah, if we now run the test, it should still, of course, fail. It just should fail for a different reason. It still gives me 404. Do I need to give it a context dot status equals HTTP status dot created? Yes, this should now pass, I hope. Yes, all right, nice. Now it passes. So we now have, again, the minimum thing to make this test pass, which is just a created status. The next step is, of course, actually adding things to the database, and we're not even validating that there's something coming back from the database yet. So we're going to actually, let me check if I actually cleared the database from the last time I did this. I did not. OK, so just go ahead and send that out. We're good, don't worry. Otherwise, this could give us a odd passing one. But expect order and then to equal object.contains. And then here we're going to put in something like, well, yeah, like that. Pretty much like that. Yeah, then we run this, and it says, nope, sorry, there's nothing, it's undefined. And that's a good thing, because it should be undefined. So now, because I did this in advance, I actually created a service for this. So there's a import order service from order. There we go. So here we can now go to await and create. All right, sorry. Maybe use the order service. Order service dot create one, and just go ahead and put the product ID, and yeah, sure, this will be fine. Yeah. Why is it added too many closing brackets again, didn't it? Yeah, it did. Yeah, this is a weird thing with Copilot. It doesn't seem to know how to close things properly. But yeah, now if we run this, it should pass because, well, it's simple and it has all the logic here that it needs. But then a good thing to actually add when you're doing an API is some input validation, because people are jerks. They like to put weird things in your API endpoints. So let's maybe create should throw or should give 400 or bad request when bad inputs given. Now this would be a great idea to have ChatGPT create like names for my test after I describe what they are. Somebody get on that plugin for VS Code or anything. But yeah, so here we're obviously just going to do just the same, pretty much the same thing as above. Yes, that's what I was waiting for. Why? Why? That's a bit excessive. Okay, so Copilot knows what I'm doing. But okay, let's not do that. Actually, we can do that. It's just I want to test this with multiple cases at once. So each, and the syntax for this I think was something like this. We can go ahead and pull this payload into here, because this is a pretty good payload to actually have, just to see what the heck happens. It might actually delete everything from there. I haven't actually checked if I even sanitize the SQL before I do it, so we'll see. It's a fun experiment we can do together. Yeah, and then obviously I want to check the general thing that if I just give a product, no, need an object, sorry, product ID, and just give a number, it shouldn't validate it. And then I'm gonna give another one, which is just, I guess the simple amount, and it's just a string of 1. Oh, and then also a good thing to usually put in here as well is some extra properties. So execute SQL, and actually there's no control character in the other one, so this one won't work. I'll try to make one that might work. So that might work. Actually, hold on. That might work. But all right. Then I think I can actually do this better than you, Copilot. There's an expect, and then the status code there. Got you, Copilot. Then, of course, since this is jest, you can just return a promise, and it will just interpret it as a promise. You don't even need to have async here. But now if we run this, it's obviously, yeah, well, it got 500, which is good, because I hope that the SQL query crashed. But let's see if it actually deleted anything. Well, actually, we should have something here now. Okay, so it didn't actually delete it. I did sanitize my SQL. Good. Then, yeah, so what we're going to do now is we're going to add the input validation. So because I am clever, I created I used Zod. If you know what that is, it's this like validation thing. So there's a validate request thing, passing it a Zod object, which should be just create, not product order. Do you exist? You should exist. I think I created you at one point at least. What?
Order service, not create order.
No, it's in validators. I have it in a different directory. It's this one. I have to go back now and just paste it in, and it will fix it. And then we're gonna pass the context here, and again it gets rid of those things. So now if we run it, this should actually work, and it doesn't work. It still gives me a 500 error. Where does it fail, I wonder? Now it's the epic demo effect. So where do you actually fail? Oh, right, because I'm actually not even sending in the payload. I'm just doing this. So payload, send payload. There we go. And how about now? Will this just magically fix it? No, it's still. Oh, it's the first one that sends a 500. So maybe it is actually trying to delete things. It really shouldn't. How did that pass through there? Maybe we can do some more in-depth validation here with dot. What was it? There was some logic for this. I don't know. Maybe we'll leave that to be. It's a problem of the actual application. So I'll just change this to be a number, and we will call it fine. But yeah, now it passes. Right, I need to actually see why it didn't sanitize the string. But yeah, now we have an endpoint. So now we can move on to adding our sweet buttons here. So now we're actually not connected to this endpoint, so we don't have anything here. But we should add some buttons for buying things. So the way I thought about this, that I thought would look quite nice, would be to basically have a little add to cart button and a little buy button that shows you how many you've added to cart, because I don't feel like adding a whole other cart service and all that, so we're not going to do that. But instead, we're just going to go into our test. Or actually, no, we're going to create a new test, because why would we do everything in the same thing? So almost. So we're going to do here should be able to buy a product. There we go. And probably going to need this as well. So I'm going to just do a before each here real quick, because we all probably need these three things, or all of them probably need this. So don't worry about it. We're good. Make it async. Oh, I probably need the product also outside of here. So let product. Oh, now it imports. Nice. There we go. Perfect. Now it exists for everyone. Now we can run this test to make sure that it works, which you should. There's nothing that should have changed there. Now we can do the same thing here. So, yeah, sure. So we're going to try to get a buy button and start with that. So then we're going to run this. It's going to fail. We're going to go into our test. We're going to go down all the way to the bottom, add a little new div in here, add a button, and put a buy text in there. And then we're going to run it. Hey, it works. Nice. Then we're going to go back to here, and we're going to add some more logic to this. So probably when we click the buy, we probably want something to happen, don't we? Const buy button, and oh Lord, way too fast. No, stop that. Stop it, Copilot. Don't write my tests for me. Yeah, now I lost my train of thought. Terrific. Oh yeah, so I need to mock the create order endpoint. I created all these handy little helpers for myself, so I wouldn't need to do them now. Then I'm going to do a fire event and click the button. and then we're gonna expect the fetch to have been called with and close. We didn't go with the API thing here, so we're just gonna do an expect dot string contains and just /orders. I like to do it this way because then I don't have to think too much about if we change it to have like more deeply nested, this will still pass because it still goes to the order endpoint. So if it goes like API product order or whatever, this will still pass because nothing actually changed for the application. Then object dot what's it called? No, not object. Sorry, it's actually the expect dot object containing. These are really useful methods in Jest that I noticed that you can use method post, and that we actually probably want to send an amount as well. So quantity would have been a better word than amount. Damn. Note this off for next time. Google different words for the same word. Then if we run this, it's of course not going to pass because we don't have any, or I guess fetch isn't called with this at all. We do click the button though, so that's nice. So now we're just going to add the functionality. Now again, accessibility people, I know I'm not putting the button in a form, but I'm sorry. Yeah, so on click, and here we're gonna just do a void, and then what did I call it? Did I call it create order? Yeah, I think that was pretty much it. Then product ID, comma, amount. So let's just put 4. Oh wait, I actually put in the test that it should be 1. So 1. Then we run the test, and now it's 1. Now if we take a look at this, it looks amazing. It looks like it blends into the text there. But we can, like, it already works. Like, you can go in here and you can press buy, and it sends an order request, and it gives me back 201. So we can already order things, which is nice. And I mean, this is the first time I refreshed the UI. I didn't need to do it at all before this, which is just great. I don't like looking at the UI. But yeah, then if we go back into the test, we now want to add the other functionality that I talked about of adding some stuff to a cart, which is a killer feature people like to have. So the way we're going to do that is that we're just going to basically, so my thinking here is that you probably shouldn't be able to buy something before you have something in the cart. So probably this one shouldn't be visible anymore. So we're going to change you to a query by role, and then we're going to do an expect and make sure that you are not actually in DOM. That's to be null. There we go. So that was the first thing we did. Good. We're still going to keep this one because we probably want to have a buy button for later. But yeah, then we're mocking the API request. We could technically do that earlier on, like here. And now we just need to get the, well, almost, but, well, I guess we'll do the same thing, but we'll just call it an add to cart button. Add to cart button, and here we're gonna put just, I'm gonna go ahead and put a regex thing here because I don't trust my typing. So if it's like something differently written, it will still pass because it matches on regex, so it's fine. Add to cart, there we go, that works great. Then we're gonna do, so because it's React, it needs to update state. We probably need to await for the element to actually be there. So actually, let's try it without it, because it might be that we don't need to. Const by button, get by role by, yeah, exactly. So we might not need to do this. We'll see what it looks like. But yeah, now we buy it, and it should still be just 1. So now we run this, and of course fails because we don't have, well, both the first one is not null, so maybe we need to fix that one first. Go to here, and just gonna sneakily just, actually you can do it this way too. Just so this is a sneaky way of doing this. You just go false. No one will ever know. But yeah, now it fails on getting the other roll. So now we're just gonna add the other button, which was add to cart, I believe. And this one we already wrote the test for what it needs to do. So then we just need to add the state. So classic, just const cart. Wait, what could I call it? Like cart state? No, just yeah, cart state. Set cart state, and then equals use state. React is so easy, you guys. It's but yeah, then obviously here, oh, maybe we should initiate it with like a 0 because probably don't want to have that be anything. But yeah, then here we're going to do another onClick. And again, I'm sorry, accessibility people, but this is the way it is. So set state, and then we're going to go cart state plus 1. Yes, I could just do plus, but don't worry about it. So now if I run the test, it's going to fail at a different point. So now we're failing at the point where we don't have a buy button at all. Right? Isn't that where we're failing? This would be easier if I had a higher resolution. Yeah, so there's no buy button. Good. So then we're just going to make sure that this here is cart state is not equal to 0. Right, this is JavaScript. You need to have 2 equals on the not. Actually, no, hold on. That's a bad idea. Maybe greater than 0. Just, it can be, like if it is -1, just, I mean, I would otherwise write a specific test for it, but again, strapped for time here, we're just trying to demonstrate the idea here. But yeah, now that should be basically that, I think. It now has it, but yeah, we're obviously not fetching because fetch was not called. Are we even clicking it in the test? I don't remember. Oh yeah, no, we're not. That explains it. Fire went, there we go. And then we run, and now it passes. Great. What does it look like in the UI? Add to cart, buy button appears, press buy. Right, the buy button doesn't disappear. But then again, we haven't written a test for it either, so it's fine. Now we do an await for, no, stop it. Just gonna await for this one. Like so. Yeah, so wait for that one to be removed. That's obviously gonna fail. And then we're gonna go back and, no, sorry, we're gonna go to here. And then oh, look at that. That's a problem. Oh, well, I can write a different test for it because that didn't actually catch it. It probably should. But yeah, then here we can just do a dot, then, yeah, like that. Exactly like that. So now if we refresh, actually no, run the test first, Dusan. Come on, what are you doing here? Now we can refresh and actually see that it works as well. Then buy, and it's gone. Great, terrific. Yeah, I think one thing that we're, of course, missing is that we're now always just buying one product. So no matter how many of these we're actually adding here, it's just always going to send one. So that's clearly a bug. You should probably have a test for it. So we're going to do that. We're going to do it a bit easier here because I don't think I have that much time left. So I'm just going to yank this one and paste it a couple of times. And then I expect this to be 3. So we're just going to do that in the same test. It should be a different test, but we're going to do it in the same test. So now we see that, OK, no, it's not correct. So then we're going to go back into the code, and then we're going to put here the cart state. And now if we run it, it should work as expected. There we go, perfect. So now that we got this, I'm still gonna go into my last little cheat sheet here where I have the nice prettified version of this. Just copy that over so it can look nicer. Then I can put this on Fiverr. Or not Fiverr, sorry, the Dribble. So we're gonna paste that in there. And of course, run it again to make sure everything works. Oh, something failed. Oh yeah, right, I was experimenting with actually having, right, that's dumb of me. Why would I have done that? Well, for this demo's sake, we're gonna take this away. And then just run it and it'll be fine because I did this earlier so that you would actually see the number of that. Actually, we can do that now too. Let's go. Do we have time? Okay, fine. All right, but yeah, now you can see we have the cart and then we can buy. But yeah, that was it for the live coding session. I hope I showed the TDD portion good, and at least like this is how I personally do TDD. This is my own opinion version of this, that I like to do it this way. And in a more real world scenario where I would have more time, I would probably have gone through and shown you how I wrote tests for the services, how I wrote tests for these things. Now we just were strapped for time, so we went at a very high level. Everything is tested from the view. Nothing was refactored away, but it's okay because I hope I demonstrated the idea of this. Now let's talk about the conclusion here. So the conclusion I want to have, and some thoughts that I think people might have right off the top of your head. So TDD is a tool in your tool chain. It is not something that is a silver bullet. Like, you won't suddenly start doing TDD and be the best programmer in the company. That won't happen. But it will definitely make you write better code and make you think more about your application design. Because you kind of, as you saw when I was doing it, I was thinking about how do I want that to look and how do I want it to be displayed. And then I wrote the test for it assuming that. So that kind of leads you to think things forward. Now the other thoughts that I think people might have is that should everyone do TDD? Short answer, no. Not everyone should do TDD. Long answer, yes, everyone should do TDD. But the long answer is mostly because if you're a junior and you're just starting out, you probably shouldn't be doing TDD, because if you're still struggling to figure out why your console logs are not being printed in the order that you wrote them in, you probably shouldn't be thinking about TDD just yet. Figure out the basics, get a bit better grasp on things, then you can start doing TDD. And until then, I hope you have seniors helping you to grow and get better. And then, should you always do TDD? Again, short answer, no. Long answer, yes. So the long answer is that essentially, if you have an actual production error, there's something happening in production that you need to fix, and there are customers depending on it, I would suggest go ahead and fix that first and write the test after. It's fine. You're not unless it's something extremely huge that just would take rewriting the entire code base, then probably do TDD, but there are very few of those scenarios. But yeah, essentially do write TDD as often as you can, but be mindful of that if you have a customer who's actually suffering and can't actually move forward in their life with what they're doing. A lot of us build software for people that their entire job is using the software. So if you're sitting there and figuring out what would be the best way to architect this while this person can't work for 8 hours, probably not great. So use TDD as often as you can, but be mindful that when there's something that actually needs to get done immediately, fix it, then write the test, refactor, and you can do those things afterwards as well. It's just a lot better and faster when you do it beforehand. But yeah, that was it for me.